Relationships are being destroyed at frightening speed on social media. Now to the next story. Story 2. Ex-wife who cheated and abandoned her family shows up years later, with another man's child, begging for a second chance. What should I do? Some background here. I, 37 male, and Angela, 36, my ex-wife, had met in our mid-20s. We met when I was about 24 and we were employed by the same company. We were married after 2 years of dating, and 3 years into our marriage we had 2 kids, now 9 and 7 years old. Though I had told her it would be good with me if she did, I didn't want to put her through anything she didn't want, hence the second pregnancy was unexpected and she wasn't happy about it. She didn't kill it either. Things were still wonderful between us and we were as in love as we could have following our first daughter. After the second pregnancy though, that changed. She started to get rather irritated, sullen, and started to pick on our eldest or me consistently. Just realizing this was due to all the hormones, I tried to reconcile with this new Angela. After some time, we believed this would change. Instead, things just became worse. Around her, my daughter and I learnt to walk on eggshells. She was supposed to be a stay-at-home mom, but I was running everything. After our first child, she had quit her job of her own volition and done all the housework along with looking after our eldest while I worked till she fell pregnant for the second time. She claimed she was too weary to take care of our children and the house, hence we had to get a maid while she was pregnant. I consented, even though it was only somewhat outside our means since at the time I wasn't making enough. Especially considering Angela's pregnancy, I wanted not to trouble her too much. After our second daughter was born, I thought she would come back tending to the house and children throughout the day. Let me also state clearly that I was not among those men who neglected household chores. Though I was tired from working, I did anything I could to help out after returning from my job. I assumed she would take some time to heal after she delivered our younger daughter, but then we would go back to our regular life. Still, several months passed and she showed no change. She refused to help out around the house and stayed exactly as angry and agitated. She would simply spend all day seated at home watching TV. She hardly engaged in any activities with the children either. She would periodically pay our neighbor to drive them to the park. Though I wouldn't want to come across as hostile, I did feel that way as I was working day and night while she wouldn't even do the minimum at home. Additionally, proving somewhat costly for me to pay for a maid to do all the cooking, cleaning and other domestic tasks was, along with all the other bills, I had to look after and wanted to preserve money for our daughters' futures. Angela refused to assist me in any kind, hence that was practically impossible. After around 6 months following the birth of our younger daughter, I realized we could not continue like this and had to speak with Angela. Knowing this would be a challenging conversation, so I requested my parents to watch our girls for the day. They agreed. That day, I sat Angela down and told her I realized she was fatigued with 2 pregnancies, but I needed her to assist me and coordinate with me. I told her that we were finding a maid to be too costly, and I needed her to respect her word and return to at least some of the housework so we may renegotiate and cut the housekeeper's pay to save some money. She claimed she was too busy watching the children to handle any of the housework, so she turned down the proposal right away. She also advised me to start making more instead of justifying our financial condition by pointing out her guilt. Although I attempted to persuade her I was already doing my best, if we were to make this marriage work she needed to help too. I also mentioned how, from what I knew, she simply let the children watch television with her for hours while she watched tacky reality TV, neglecting their needs. The housekeeping had remarked to me casually this as well. She flared up and accused me of spying on her through the maid, so I quickly understood that bringing this up was a big mistake. Saying she was done being pushed about by me and forced to do all the labor while I purportedly did nothing except sit at a desk for a few hours each day, she went on a rant against me. Claiming I should be the man of the house, she then chastised me for asking her to help and blamed me for not being able to pay a maid. While I was the rational one expecting her to help the house, her charges were utterly nonsensical and she was merely grabbing at straws to give the impression that her not doing anything all day was normal. We finally got into a huge argument and she labeled me a loser unable to afford to be with a woman like her. Given how terrified our eldest daughter was of her, I responded by accusing her of being a lazy cow who had already failed at being a good mother. Now she was failing as a wife too. That comment definitely spoke to her, and she pushed me hard. I stumbled, fell back on the coffee table, broke the glass and hurt myself. I had to get hurried to the ER. She continued to apologize and weep all through, but fortunately my back was only mildly injured. She had to move out. I told her I no longer trusted her. Around the children, I couldn't trust her either as I had no idea when she could lose her fury once more and damage them as well. While Angela was still living, I urged our parents to look after our daughters. She kept protesting for a week, pledging she would never let something like that happen once more, but I couldn't believe her. She begged me to give her another chance. I almost filed for divorce. By the conclusion of the week, we decided she would receive therapy and go live with her parents for some period. I would let her move back in with us only once she had been vetted by a medical professional. She was willing to work on it and improve, thus clearly something was quite wrong with her since happy individuals do not act that way. I also wanted my girls to have their mother, hence I chose not to divorce her just yet and give our marriage another go. While we were living apart, we also began marriage counseling. But, ultimately it proved to be ineffective. She turned out to be cheating on me. Angela was living with her folks when my parents came in to help with my girls. We attended weekly marriage counseling sessions and for some time things looked to be improving. Her therapist contacted me as well. She informed me she had postpartum depression but was improving. Anger problems had been one of her symptoms. She had never had them before, but they became very out of hand when she pushed me. For both of us, that woke us awake. This continued for about a year, and around 6 months in there I even let her visit our girls under my direction. It delighted me to watch her gradually returning to her old self. At last, our circumstances seemed better and we could really make it work. She then abruptly quit showing up for our counseling appointments without giving any reason though. She stopped answering me as well, but given her therapist kept me informed, I knew she was progressing. It did not make sense to me. I persisted in attempting to talk to her for weeks, but she would simply blow me off claiming she needed some alone time. At last, after almost 3 months of her avoiding me, I paid her a visit at her parents' house. Her parents disliked me and blamed me for her actions, thus I hadn't done that previously. They thought I was the one who had driven their daughter insane and produced such behavior. Angela had advised me it would be better if I skipped seeing her while she was living with them since it would simply cause more drama, the last thing we wanted. She had been acting aloof and skipping counseling appointments, hence I disregarded that guideline and paid them nevertheless. She seemed indifferent even when she did sporadically come up, and I simply could not understand it. She insisted everything was good whether I tried personally speaking with her, on the phone, or even by text. But her behavior made it abundantly evident she was hiding something from me. When I arrived at her parents' place, I thought she would be there but she wasn't. Her parents slammed the door in my face when I asked where she was and said they were not permitted to tell me. I had a nasty feeling about it since I could tell they were loving the circumstances. So, standing before their house, I made the decision to phone Angela. My paranoia was developing as I tried phoning her several times but she didn't answer. Desperate, I resolved to try to go inside myself by slipping around the house. Knowing her parents typically kept the kitchen door open, I headed around to the backyard. But I didn't have to travel that far since Angela was seated on a swing in the backyard. The bad news was that she was making out with a man I didn't know, not alone. Because that was the most terrible event of my life, that instant is etched in my head. The man went away as soon as he noticed me, and by the time Angela looked around I was already headed back to my car. I was in total shock, hence she caught up with me and tried to stop me but I was not hearing anything she was saying. I shook her off and warned her not to touch me when she tried to grab me. She neglected, thus I got in my automobile and headed home. I told my parents I wanted them to hire a lawyer for me and blocked Angela everywhere as soon as I got home so she wouldn't have an opportunity to explain. When I paid Angela's parents a visit, I told them of what I had recently seen. She never contacted me once again until we had to visit the court-appointed mediator for our divorce settlement. By then I had essentially become a robot, totally shut off emotionally but driven only for the benefit of my girls. Even when I learned Angela was entering her parental rights, I felt nothing. She had decided she wanted to be with the guy, let's call him Sean, who I saw her with instead of with us. He was her friend from childhood. Although they had drifted apart during high school, they got back together when she moved back home with her parents. Apparently she had developed feelings for him. Her parents apparently encouraged this, hence it's likely why they didn't object to her kissing him in their backyard even though she is a married woman with 2 kids. Apparently, they had always wanted her to wind up with Sean, and they were glad Angela was at last choosing herself and her own happiness, as if she had ever been capable of doing anything other than that. She wanted to qualify for alimony, hence the divorce was a protracted procedure even though she had been cheating on me. Though it took some time, my attorney and I battled valiantly to ensure she received nothing in the divorce. Since I had been the one paying for everything while she watched TV at home, it was all rightly mine. The divorce was finalized 5 years ago, and we were successful in ensuring she left empty-handed. Though I knew I couldn't break since I had to look after my girls, who had nobody but me, the months I spent handling the divorce were some of the toughest periods I had. I can never enough thank my parents for being there for me when I balanced job and childcare. They are quite helpful and supportive. 5 years have gone